King Solomon, at the height of his wisdom as the great king of Israel, left 3 powerful pieces of advice. The first was, learn to control your words. He knew that words have immense power, and learning to control them can prevent destruction, arguments, separations, and emotional wounds. How many people carry deep pain from childhood because they heard something that should never have been said? Think of a father who used words to hurt. You will never be anything. You are good for nothing. These words, spoken by someone who should have been a source of love and security, become wounds that are often carried for a lifetime. For many, the weight of these words only lightens when they learn to forgive. Today, I want to share a message based on 3 pieces of advice from Solomon, who was one of the greatest sages of the biblical era. If you look closely from the Old to the New Testament, the Bible is filled with guidance and advice for life. But Solomon had a special gift. He was a true counselor, someone who knew how to teach people to live practically. With his unique skill, he turned complex subjects into something simple and accessible, so everyone could understand. One of the great challenges for scholars is the difficulty of communicating with the people. Often, because of their vast knowledge and the complexity of the books they've studied, they end up using complicated language, almost inaccessible. It seems like they want to prove their intelligence at any cost, and in doing so, they lose their connection with ordinary people. Solomon, however, was different. Despite being a deep thinker about life and existence, he had the ability to speak in a simple and clear way, so that anyone could understand his lessons. He is still recognized today as the wisest man who ever lived, and his wisdom is immortalized in 3 books of the Bible. 2 of them, Ecclesiastes and Proverbs, are filled with profound teachings. In particular, Proverbs is considered the greatest guide to practical wisdom ever written. Composed of 31 chapters, the book is filled with advice on various aspects of daily life: how to honor your parents, deal with friends, manage visits to others' homes, and even what to do and what to avoid in different situations. It's as if Solomon wanted to teach us how to live with balance and common sense. If you dedicate yourself to studying the book of Proverbs, it's almost certain you will make fewer mistakes in life. It is, without a doubt, a map for anyone seeking practical wisdom in daily life. However, one of the great challenges we face is this: we read, but we don't truly understand. This happens because, many times, we struggle with interpreting the text. We don't allow ourselves to really meditate on what we read. But what does it mean to meditate? To meditate is to imagine. It's not enough to just skim over the words. You need to close your eyes and visualize what is being read. It's in this process of imagination that we begin to record the ideas in our minds, allowing them to truly make sense in our lives. Still, overcoming this initial barrier doesn't solve everything. Even when we understand, we often can't put it into practice. And here's an important truth: understanding is one thing. Practice is something completely different. Practice requires discipline, willpower, and a true commitment. For example, you may understand that you need to go to the gym to take care of your health, but leaving the house and exercising is a whole other level of effort. You may know that regular medical exams are important, but the fear of a simple needle can make you put it off. It's these small resistances, these delayed decisions, that sabotage our progress. We put off until tomorrow what should be done today, and that ends up interfering with the entire course of our existence. Therefore, the secret lies not only in understanding but in taking action even in the face of small difficulties that try to paralyze us. Solomon, in a simple, clear, and accessible way, shared something extraordinary: the secrets of life. Now, think about this. A person who lived so much and learned so much has an almost moral obligation to share that knowledge with others. And that's exactly what Solomon did. He could have kept everything to himself, but he chose to write so that others could also understand the lessons he had learned. Unfortunately, many people reach the end of their lives carrying a true treasure of wisdom and experiences without ever sharing it. Solomon, on the other hand, taught us something valuable. True nobility isn't in possessing treasures, but in giving them away. Solomon was an example of this. Despite having so much wealth and absolute power as a king, he used his life to share his wisdom with the world. Kings from various kingdoms traveled to Jerusalem just to hear Solomon, bringing valuable gifts with them. The Bible recounts, for example, the visit of the Queen of Sheba from a region near Ethiopia. She brought gold, fine clothes, spices, and many other gifts to honor him and learn his wisdom firsthand. In addition to his ability to generate wealth through business, Solomon prospered through the gifts he received. This teaches us something powerful: prosperity attracts prosperity. Just like health attracts more health, and joy attracts more joy, what we carry inside tends to attract more of the same. That's why it's essential to take care of what we're storing in our hearts. Sadness attracts more sadness. Hatred brings more hatred. Bitterness brings more bitterness. But when we choose to cultivate good things, like joy, gratitude, and love, these qualities also multiply. In chapter 10 of Proverbs, Solomon shares 3 fundamental pieces of advice for life. In a world like the one we live in today, in 2024, these guidelines are more relevant than ever. It's clear that things around us are getting worse: imminent conflicts, a lack of dialogue between nations, and an unstable global economy. But it's important to make a distinction. The world may be getting worse, but your life can improve. It depends on how you choose to live. Solomon's advice is like timeless guidance to help us face difficulties, maintaining serenity and wisdom in the midst of challenging times. Before criticizing something, ask yourself, do I really have enough experience to judge this? Many times, we talk about things we don't fully understand. And here's a piece of advice: be careful with the words you use to criticize what sustains you. For example, speaking badly of your country is like spitting in the plate you're eating from. It's this country that gives you the conditions to live, work, and raise your family. I'm not saying you need to be a fervent patriot or defend everything blindly, but rather that you should stop and think before criticizing what is sustaining your life. This same principle applies to many areas. For example, don't speak ill of your family. Every family has problems. That's true for everyone. But one thing you should never do: expose or attack your own family. If there are problems, work to resolve them, not to highlight them. You need to decide which side you're on: the side of those who resolve or the side of those who just expose. Resolving requires effort, empathy, and wisdom. Exposing, on the other hand, only creates hurt and destroys relationships. Choose to be someone who builds, not someone who tears down. In chapter 10 of Proverbs, Solomon presents 3 pieces of advice that can put our lives in order. The first one is in verse 14. The wise store up knowledge, but the mouth of the fool invites ruin. This advice is deep and direct. Of everything you can store, choose to store wisdom and knowledge. Don't hold on to grudges, resentment, hatred, or bitterness. The world offers these things every day. It's inevitable. There will always be someone to criticize, offend, or try to bring you down. There will always be challenges, problems, and even unprovoked attacks. But what you do with that is your choice. Solomon warns us, don't put those bad things in your heart. Instead, choose to accumulate what truly matters: knowledge and wisdom. Because those who store wisdom become strong and resilient, while the fool uses their mouth recklessly, and that only leads to ruin. Storing bad things in your heart is a burden that holds you back. But when you choose to accumulate learning and discernment, you're preparing yourself to handle life better and grow, even through adversity. The first step to an ordered life is this: learn to keep in your heart only what benefits you. How many people have lost great opportunities by speaking too much? How many have lost promising businesses, valuable friendships, or even the love of their life because they couldn't control their words? Exposing problems, making reckless comments, or sharing things that should have been kept in the heart can lead to serious consequences. The control of words is directly linked to the state of the mind and the knowledge we accumulate. If you don't dedicate yourself to cultivating knowledge, you will struggle to control what you say. After all, the mouth is a reflection of what's in the mind and the heart. The Bible reminds us of this clearly. The mouth speaks what the heart is full of. And here, it's important to understand the meaning of heart in the scriptures. When the Bible mentions the heart, it's not referring to the physical organ, but to the seat of emotions and thoughts, that which truly guides our actions and reactions. The word heart appears more than 946 times in the Bible, almost always with this symbolic meaning. That's why we're instructed to guard our hearts above all else, to take care of our emotions and thoughts. Unbalanced emotions can be deceptive, leading us to decisions and actions we might later regret. Therefore, choose wisely what enters your mind and your heart. It's from this care that the ability to control your words is born, preventing them from causing ruin in your life. Today, thanks to advances in neuroscience, we understand better how the mind works. If you're going to put something in your head, choose to put knowledge and wisdom. This will give you greater control over your words and, consequently, help you avoid causing your own ruin. In addition to making better decisions, connecting with the right people, and distancing yourself from the wrong ones, you will be able to use your mouth to prosper, not to harm yourself. The mouth has power. With it, you can make great business deals, but you can also undo opportunities that were within your reach. With the same mouth, you can declare your love for someone and win their heart. But at the same time, with that same mouth, you can destroy relationships and push away those who love you. The Apostle James, in chapter 3 of his letter, says something profound. Out of the same mouth come blessing and cursing, fresh water and salt water. In other words, you need to choose which source will flow from your lips. And for that source to be good, your mind needs to be good. I repeat, for the source that comes from your mouth to be good, your mind must be at peace and balanced. Solomon gives us a very serious piece of advice, one that can transform our lives, our relationships, our finances, our careers, and even our families. He says, if you're going to accumulate something, accumulate wisdom, not what is bad. Because one day what you've stored inside will eventually come out of your mouth and may ruin your life. Wisdom, on the other hand, is what will help you use your mouth to prosper in the right way. In verse 17 he says, whoever heeds discipline shows the way to life, but whoever ignores correction leads others astray. Now, how do we make this choice? The answer lies in the data provided by neuroscience. 86% of everything we store in our minds comes from what we hear and see. In other words, hearing and seeing are the senses that most determine what gets recorded in our memory. Although other senses, like taste and touch, also influence us, it's vision and hearing that most strongly shape our perception of the world. This means we need to be extremely critical about what we're seeing and hearing. Ask yourself, why am I watching this? How will this help me? Or, is what I'm hearing adding any value to my life? We are responsible for what we allow into our minds, and this care helps us accumulate wisdom instead of emotional and mental junk. If you're not critical, you end up hearing and seeing everything without realizing the impact it has on your life. You might think it's no big deal, but the truth is, your mind is constantly recording everything. It's like a tape recorder that, even if you forget what you've heard or seen, somehow it gets stored. And one day, all of that will come out in some form, reflected in your words and actions. So, let's follow Solomon's advice. If we're going to accumulate something, let it be knowledge and wisdom. In this way, our mouths will never be used to cause ruin or destruction. On the contrary, with every word, we will seek to build, uplift, bless, encourage, prophesy, and do good. We should use our words for the positive, to create, never to destroy, not ourselves, nor others. Would you like to start improving your words from today? If the answer is yes, comment below. I accumulate knowledge and wisdom. Those who understand now have a mission, to practice what they've learned. If you follow this path, your life will improve immensely. When your thoughts change, your future changes too. When your words change, everything around you improves. If you believe this, send this video to at least one person who needs to hear this message today. Sometimes, words use us to help each other. Solomon's second piece of advice is even more direct and is found in verse 19. When words are many, sin is not absent, but whoever restrains their lips is wise. Solomon specifically teaches us that talking too much can lead to mistakes. The more we speak, the harder it becomes to control our words. Often, we speak without thinking and end up revealing things we shouldn't. To avoid this, the best thing is to speak less and be more careful with what we say. The Bible says, even a fool, when he keeps silent, is considered wise. Many times, wisdom lies in listening more than speaking. The need to express ourselves, to talk about ourselves, can cause others to view us wrongly. Solomon, with his wisdom, teaches us that silence is often more valuable than excessive words. He knew that controlling what we say can be the greatest sign of wisdom. And the moment we need to control our words the most is when we are angry. In the heat of anger, we may say things we will regret forever. The problem is that words are like stones thrown at glass. Once spoken, they can never be taken back. Even if we apologize, the words have already caused harm, especially emotionally. Solomon, with all his wisdom, warns us, controlling what we say prevents destruction, fights, and separations. Many people carry deep emotional wounds from words they heard in childhood, negative words from those who should have protected them, words that can hurt and leave lasting scars. Solomon's third piece of advice is about the fear of the Lord, which, according to him, prolongs life. Solomon teaches that the fear of the Lord brings longevity in all areas of life, physical, emotional, and spiritual. The life of the wicked, those who do not fear God, is shortened not just in terms of years, but also in quality of life. Living many years physically without emotional and spiritual quality is not what Solomon advises. The true fear of the Lord is not about being afraid, but deeply respecting God and living according to his teachings. To illustrate what the fear of the Lord is, let me share a personal story. I was raised by a military father, and although he wasn't affectionate, he always showed his love in other ways. One of the strict rules he had at home was that we could never eat without a shirt at the table. Even when we were children, to sit at the table, we were required to wear a shirt. This discipline made a lasting impression on my life. Years later, as an adult, I found myself in a different situation. One day, it was very hot, and I sat at the table to eat without realizing I wasn't wearing a shirt. Suddenly, I heard his voice from afar. Instinctively, I felt the need to stand up, put on a shirt, and return to the table, as if I were still a child under my father's watch. This didn't happen because my father would punish me physically, he wasn't there, but for something deeper, the fear. In that moment, I understood what it means to have fear. It wasn't fear of punishment, but a respect so profound that it made me act according to what he had taught me, even as an adult. This is the kind of fear we should have for the Lord, a deep respect that guides us to live according to his principles, even when no one is watching. The fear of the Lord means deeply respecting what is important to him and acting in accordance with that. It is not about being afraid, but about not wanting to hurt or disobey what God values. When you respect what he loves and avoid what he hates, you are practicing the fear of the Lord. The fear of the Lord leads us to long life, not just in the physical sense, but a life full of peace, wisdom, and harmony in all areas, spiritual, emotional, and social. When you do what God loves and avoid what he hates, he puts his words in your mouth and acts through you. Thus, nothing can stop you, and no evil can affect your life. With God by your side, no plague or harm will befall you. Solomon's 3 pieces of advice guide us to a life of longevity, prosperity, divine protection, and blessing. The blessing of the Lord brings peace and security, without anyone being able to take what he has given us. With this blessing, the life of everyone around you will be transformed. Each person has a gift and a ministry that God has given them, whether it is the gift of prophecy, wisdom, miracles, or any other. The important thing is that with God's blessing, everyone has what they need to fulfill their purpose. I humbly ask that you share this message to reach more people, and remember that this channel was created to help and bless, asking listeners to like and subscribe to continue spreading the word of God.